Good evening. I'm going to call the August 9th, 2022 Finance Meeting to order. I am present. Jessica Brennan, Councilmember Jessica Brennan, Councilmember Bill McPartland, Councilmember Jason Moskowitz, Town Attorney Elena Finnan, Town Comptroller Elizabeth Greenwood, Assistant to the Comptroller Janet Wynn. We have Eric Amberger, Chief Koshin, Michelle Martinelli, Diane Percy, Ray Smith, Dan Bolke, and Seth Greenwood. Seth? Steph Goldstein. All right, may I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes from July 12th, 2022 Finance Meeting?
Motion to approve the minutes from the July 12th meeting.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Are there any changes to those minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Moving on to the items for action.
All right, the first thing, we'll have the usual budgetary modifications. Now that we're in the second half of the year, you'll start seeing more of those as we keep everybody's lines balanced out. We're going to be requesting a resolution accepting the updated employee handbook. I sent out the most updated version this morning, again, to everybody. There were only a couple of very small changes from the last version. I think we've got everything in there. If anybody catches any errors, please let me know, and I'd like to get that completed. We may have a resolution establishing the standard workday, or we may not. Okay, apparently we're not this month, so that's good. We'll take that one off of there. We are going to have a resolution permanently appointing a principal account clerk. This was just completion of a probationary period, so it is not a new hire or anything like that. Resolution appointing a student worker in the planning department. Resolution declaring old electronics and telephone equipment surplus so that they can go to auction. There were attached lists that Steph had put together of all that equipment. It was quite a bit. We also have a resolution to purchase the cloud storage that Seth had gone out to bid. The lowest bid was the Google option for $14,040. A resolution to purchase a pump for the Balltown South Sewer Pump Station that had come up previously at the
Public Works.
Public Works. Thank you. I'm losing it tonight.
That's okay.
Public Works meeting. We're a resolution, hopefully accepting a mini bid for the bus for the senior programs. We should have the results of that in at the end of this week. Friday, so we should know.
It looks like we might be able to get one sooner than we thought, correct?
We are very hopeful. We've
I'm
thought.
gonna write a check Monday morning.
Yeah, that's our, we sure hope so.
Send him down to pick it up.
Yes.
The last one got sold out for me.
Yeah, we've had several issues where we thought we had one and then it was sold before we could get there. So we're fingers crossed. Lost my place. Okay, resolution appropriating fund balance. I've spelled a lot of this out. And the reason for this is I'm sure everybody is very aware at this point. Even though the department heads went out and got updated costs on everything prior to our bidding for the ban to bond for the equipment, everything has gone up in price. So we're over on everything right now. So what we're doing is we're just picking up little bits of fund balance to close that last gap. It's across all the funds. I spelled it all out there just so that everybody can see kind of what we have coming and going. From general fund, their plus up is just over $10,000. That covers the mowers, the UTV, and the pickup, all for the Parks Department. There is a second appropriation from the general fund related to a tax settlement. A portion of that will be repaid by the fire district. The highway fund has a portion of the tax settlement as well. Water one, we are over the cost of fire hydrants as far exceeding what we had in our budget lines for that. And it needs done. 2 of those hydrants will be purchased on behalf of others, one of which is the school, and then they will repay us. For the skid steer, again, that was an overage. It gets divided across water and both sewer funds. The forklift, we're still waiting on additional quotes We're not exactly sure how far over that one's going to go. They've been working very hard to try to get as many bids as possible and push those costs down. But like we saw with the highway equipment, everything is ridiculously over what we expected. Sewer 1, it's a repayment to Sewer 6 due to a capital project mislabeling with the bonding, so we're just correcting that. Sewer 6 also is going to look at a repair to the UV disinfection system with the estimate right now is not to exceed $33,500, and that is something that we have to do. So again, once we get the final numbers for the forklift, I'll get those numbers out to the full board so you can see exactly what we're working with.
So Beth, when you do that, can you put a little summary together of, I guess, how we are this year as far as that fund balance?
Absolutely.
Not something complicated, but so we have a general idea of what's been spent and where we are.
Yep.
I know you started giving some information for budgeting purposes and stuff to everybody on the board, but maybe just a little summary. with
Yeah,
this.
absolutely. And
Thank you.
the one ray of sunshine I will say in all of this is that with the interest rates going up, we're actually starting to get decent return on the money we do have in the bank right now. The way we've got it currently invested, we get returns compounding daily. So our increase has been significant in the last month and a half, which has been great. So not quite this much, but we're better than we were doing. So small steps. The next item was approval for the assessor to attend the New York State Assessors Association Training Conference from the 18th through the 21st of September.
So anything for approval, we're going to be voting on.
So we'll need a vote on that.
We're going to vote on that as a finance committee. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay. Eric, you want to say a little bit about the conference that you're going to be going to?
Sure,
Great.
it's the yearly New York State Assessors Association Conference. I'm going to be taking 12 hours of state mandated, 24 hours, I believe, of state mandated training. And it's going to cost about $1,025. And up to 80% of that is reimbursable by New York State.
Great.
So
Have you gone to this before?
I have not.
You have not. So now as you're new as our full-time assessor, so this will be your first time going.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Are there any other questions?
Is this local or are you traveling for this?
It's in Lake George.
So you're traveling back and forth or staying?
I'll be staying there.
So does this cover like hotel and food or this is just?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, hotel, food, and the state can reimburse up to 80% of the $1,025, so roughly $800. Up to. Sometimes they have
Excellent.
Right.
formulas, doesn't always work out that way.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, is there any other discussion? Any other questions? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, it's approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. We need a finance committee approval for the generator service contract renewal for the wastewater plant. It's an $8,097.64, and it runs through May 31st of '24. I don't know if Dan, did you want to speak to that?
Anybody got questions for Dan? Why don't you just give the board a little recap on it, Dan?
So this is to have the generator supplier service technician come and service it regularly. And it's something we typically standard practice to have them come back and do this service, regular maintenance on it. And so it's we've had this before, and it's nothing out of the ordinary to have this.
Thank you.
I had another question. Is this number a flat fee for them to come and do everything that needs to get done, or did they give you an itemized list of repairs?
I believe this is the flat fee for the period that would service the generator. I don't have a lot of the details, to be honest.
Is this a yearly cost, the same amount?
I believe this is for the period, for that,
Oh, for
for the
It's almost 2 years.
2 year,
years.
yeah, almost a
Right.
2 year period. And that's the generator itself. Whenever we have power outages, of course, at the wastewater plant, the generator automatically kicks on and keeps all the pumps running and all the equipment there to operate the plant on diesel fuel until the power gets back on.
So this will be every 2 years, it'll be about $8,000.
Yes, yes.
Thank you for explaining that.
Do we have to vote on this, correct?
Is there any other discussion? Seth, would you mind coming up and speaking a little bit about the cloud? Oh, I'm sorry. We've got a sidebar. We have an approval for the generator service. Is there any other discussion? Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that is approved. Thank you, Seth.
No
I
problem.
just want you to revisit the need for the cloud storage.
Okay. So it's not technically cloud storage, it's cloud email. Okay. So as we all know, we currently host our own email here. I'm very good at IT stuff, but email is really a specialized field. And we really don't want the responsibility or the liability of having the email server in-house. Now is the perfect time to do it because the software support for the version we currently have is expiring very early next year. So we want to get ahead of the curve, get our email transferred to the new service. This also gives us the MFA, multi-factor authentication, that is required by our insurance policy. It's going to be a much more reliable service. If our email server goes down, I pretty much don't get notified that it went down. So I have to wait for somebody to call me. There's a potential for losing email. There's just a ton of reasons to switch. And I know my predecessor had also made that recommendation to the board before, but monetary wise, we're getting an excellent deal. For the first 3 years, they're discounting it 50%. So it's going to be $14,000 every year, but we in theory should be paying $28,000 for that service. And then we can renegotiate at the end of that term. So
You had given us some other figures about what you felt it cost us to do it ourselves.
Correct.
And I remember that, and you were working with this almost within your budget. Is that right?
it is. My budget's going to have to go up a little bit next year to cover this, but the difference is I figured all the different services for 3 years. Because not only do we pay for the licenses for the email server, it's the software itself, but we also pay for our Barracuda archiver, which allows us to do FOIL requests or lost email searches and stuff like that, or research for Elena. But we also have the anti-spam gateway. So that we pay between $4,000 and $5,000 every year. So when you average it out, we're over $10,000 every year for email to host it ourselves. So it's going to be about a $4,000 difference. But like I said, it gives us so much more, and the liability is off the town. So
Yes, and remind me again, the multi-factor authentication.
So what that is it's either sends you a text message or uses an app on your phone to confirm, or another Google device to confirm that you are who you say you are. In other words, it's much harder to hack an MFA protected account, which is why the insurance company wants that. So what'll happen is when you go to log into your email account from a different device, it'll ask you for a secondary verification besides just your password.
That's really good. It's important to have, given that we are a municipality with a large budget. That's important.
And this system you're going with, if other municipalities use this same?
Yeah, it's
provider?
Google Workspace. It's basically Google's commercial product. Most a lot of large businesses, there's basically two big players in the market. There's Office 365, which is also called Outlook. And then there's Google Workspace, which is essentially the commercial version of Gmail.
And the email addresses are going to stay the same,
That is
Correct.
correct.
but people will have to do new passwords and things like that, correct?
Yes. Yeah. And depending on how the people want it, whether they want their old email archived, we're going to either archive it or bring it over. The new mail, currently our current mailboxes start off at 4 gigs worth of storage space, but some of the users use more than that. The largest user we currently have is 20 gigs or 21 gigs, which is,
Is that Laura's department?
yes, it is.
Yeah,
That was a good guess.
it wasn't a guess. A lot of big files, plans, a lot of stuff.
Right, exactly. She gets a lot of PDF files with plans and stuff. So, but this will give us 50 gigs per user. So I won't have to get emails from people every month and a half saying, "Hey, can I have more space?" So, and there is the potential to up those mailboxes for an extra dollar figure per user, as opposed to when we run out of space, if we're hosting it on premises, we got to replace all the equipment. And the only reason why the on-prem is not not a lot more expensive is because we use virtual servers, so it commingles or it coexists with the other servers we're running. Otherwise, we would be replacing equipment at this point too. So that's a good cost savings, but it does free us up with not having to replace the equipment as often because we're no longer using those resources for the email.
Seth, I have a question.
Sure.
So from other discussions we've had about the cloud, from what I understand, we would pay for this cloud storage this looks like a 3-year contract. And then we would have to re-up that contract in order to keep that data. Otherwise, we don't own that anymore.
We
So-
can grab the data out of there at any time.
Okay.
And the Google government rep for New York State lives in Amsterdam. So he travels through Niskayuna on a regular basis. So he's very friendly to our cause.
Okay. So if in 3 years we decided to go with a different server or a different system, but we needed to access emails for foils or other things, we could still access that cloud.
That is
Information.
correct. What we would do is, let's say we went to Office 365. All the individual mailboxes would get transferred. The archiver I would export, and we would store it on premises, which that's still an option, still maybe something I'm going to do just so that way we have the data locally also. But it's not a huge worry in my feeling. And the other thing, like I said, he pretty much said to me that we would be able to keep this rate, but obviously, no one ever knows what's going to happen. So, but we're locked in for 3 years on this.
That rate is per year for 3 years, though.
Yes.
What is the time frame? So if this all goes through, what is the time frame for how long it would take to switch to the new server?
Well, there's a hard date of it has to be done before, I want to say, I'm trying to remember when the actual date, the old server software stops getting security patches.
So
But it's-
early next year sometime.
Right, it's early next year.
In the meantime, if it's required by our insurance company, does our current server have MFA capabilities? It doesn't?
It does not. Part of the deal of them giving us insurance was me signing off that I would have a plan to fix this. This was part of my plan the whole time. It was just a matter of how are we going to fund it? What's it going to cost? Where are we looking at? Type of thing. So, and for the cost difference, it doesn't make sense not to do it. So.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it's,
Thanks.
you really did a good job looking at all the different options. I know you talked me through it for a couple of months now, and I really appreciate all the research you did and just making sure that we got the best deal. And I think it's really important that we have that safety and meet our insurance requirements. So that all makes sense to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is, we'll need to do approval for the purchase of the electrical materials for the water treatment plant upgrade project. This was the electrical portion of that bid has been pulled out so that they could decrease the cost overall to the repairs that were needed.
So absolutely, we know the bids came in high for that contract. And in an effort to save costs, though, the water plant staff are going to be providing some labor to install the conduit for the electrical equipment there at the water plant. And so this is to purchase the electrical conduit and other miscellaneous items for installing the conduit. The electrician with the contract will then run the wiring through the conduit. But this is saving a lot. So we're talking about digging the ditches, installing the conduit between all the well houses, saving a significant amount of in cost to the contractor. So this is for the purchase of the electrical equipment, conduit, the other miscellaneous items.
Any questions? Discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Oh, Elena, go ahead. Oh. You're on that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's approved.
Okay, and Ray brought up to my attention, we also need approval for purchasing parts for the leaf truck. That's the big leaf vacuum that the guys take out in the fall. Last year, the parts were really not available. They had gone through a distributor. They're going back to direct purchase for the parts. The amount is $7,629. That was also on at the Public Works Committee and somehow didn't quite make it onto our agenda. So I wanted to make sure that that was on here as well.
Yes, I remember we discussed that. They're backup parts, just in case anything fails. And are there any questions or
Gotta keep the
discussion?
leaf trucks running.
Don't-
Fall's coming.
Don't fall asleep on those leaves.
You'll be getting the calls. And you'll be calling me. And
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? All right, that is approved.
All right, the next item is a discussion regarding the dissolution of the 9 lighting districts. We've been asked by the county to kind of cut down on the number of extraneous districts we have things in the town here. One of the low-hanging fruit that we can actually manage is the lighting districts. What I'm recommending, and I've been talking with Elena about this and working with Eric, is that we dissolve the lighting districts and we put the electricity for the street lighting in as a line item, simply within the budget, rather than having it all as separate. We currently have 9 lighting districts that we manage separately, and that causes a great deal of additional administrative burden.
Well, oh, Bill, go ahead. No, you go.
It's very interesting. So I guess I have a few more questions about that.
Mhm.
This was never done in the past, I guess. And for these lighting districts, were then those fees passed to the residents that were in those areas that lived on those streets? And so they would pay a little more in their tax bills because they had a lighting district?
Yes.
Yes. So what happens with that?
Basically, it's allowable because having streetlights on any street is of benefit to all people who live or work in a town. So it's allowed to be spread out across the entire town as a line item. It's an allowable expense. There are no capital expenses that need to be maintained solely with those properties that are identified. So this would just be the electricity as a line item in the general fund budget.
So how does that affect you in your taxes for those areas that would be paying for these lighting districts?
Yes, it would. People in the lighting district might pay a little bit less.
Come up to the mic, please. Thank you.
I'm sorry, the people who live in the lighting district who pay for the special district might pay a little less. And that, to make the shortfall, the rest of the town would probably pay a little bit more. And we're not talking large numbers here.
No, I know. I see it in the budget for many years, right? They're, $500, $700, $800 things, 300, they're listed out. So I'm just trying to get an idea how this is gonna work.
Okay, I don't have a dollar figure of how it might affect an average property tax bill, but I do know it's pretty small.
From a safety perspective, I could see how streetlights benefit everyone. And it's not just one neighborhood.
Right? And did that get started way back when, neighborhoods were built, that kind of thing? Is that how they ended up having lighting districts?
Yes, so initially when they would have been established, there would have been probably some type of bonding done at the time to actually pay for the installation of the lights, which would have been applicable to a given district. And then once that initial debt is paid off, it's just part of the operations and maintenance cost, which is only the electricity at this point that is charged to each of those districts. But there is no capital debt currently, nor has there been for some time.
So do we have a total on what this figure is?
I'd have to go check the budget, but it's a very small amount. I want to say 39,000 overall across the 9 districts, but don't quote me on that. I'd have to go look.
Yeah, I don't have the figure either, but I can look it up as well.
But we're talking about a fluctuation of, is it under $5? Is it more than $5 on some people's bill, or probably over
Something in
and
that
that's-
range.
And that's in the course of a year?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so if it gets, just for myself, I just like to have those numbers, like, okay, if a person in district whatever is paying, $3 or $5 on their tax bill every year, what then, and we kind of lump this all together, and then it goes into the general budget. So now 39,000, that's $39,000 more that all the residents have to make up. Just whatever those numbers are, just like to have that.
And also, just as far as process, to dissolve the districts would essentially be the same process as it was to establish them. So we'd have to call for a public hearing before we can dissolve them. So it wouldn't be on for resolution to dissolve, it would be on for a public hearing.
Just for clarification, the lighting districts are like the pole lights that are like in the country club neighborhood and those lights, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, the lights along like Balltown Road and Route 7, those are all maintained by the state. Is that? Those aren't included in the lighting districts.
No, I don't have the geographical boundaries of the lighting districts, but
Okay.
I believe Balltown Road and State Street are in there, but I have to double check on that. And at the public hearing, I could have more information for you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, and the final thing is a discussion regarding properties assigned to the incorrect sewer district. This one, Matt does a far better job telling the story of the district than I do, but I will give it my best shot here. Back in 1978, there was a new sewer pump station built on Balltown Road. A number of properties that are basically kind of behind the JCC that used to be part of Sewer District 1 were then rerouted to go through that pump station and become part of Sewer District 6. There was actually a cement plug put into the pipe so they could no longer transfer sewage from those properties down to the city with the rest of Sewer District 1 to be processed. So they de facto became part of Sewer District 6 at that point. However, they were never properly adjusted to become part of Sewer District 6. They're still all listed as part of Sewer District 1. However, for billing and tax purposes, there is a very complicated calculus that goes on to try to adjust what they pay to account for this. It seems that it would make much more sense to just put them into the correct sewer district so that we're not doing a very strange math problem every year as part of the budget process. Additionally, Matt has let me know that there are odd properties throughout the town that are misnumbered and in the wrong sewer district. So he has a list, and what we would like to do is just properly reassign all the properties into the correct sewer districts going forward. That will be a similar process. It will require a public hearing. He's given me some preliminary maps on all this and lists of properties to make sure that we can get everybody into the correct district so that then they are properly billed both on their taxes and utility bills going forward.
So will there be any financial impact to the town? Or the sewer treatment?
No, I mean, it's all accounted for. They are all receiving bills at this current point, and there is a whole process on how this is harmonized, basically. It's just that it's a huge, massive process because they're not assigned to the correct district, whereas if we just assign them to the correct district, it becomes infinitely easier.
There would be no impact to the residents' water billing, right? I mean, they're all metered the same.
Yeah, water would be completely unaffected by this. This is just related to sewer.
Okay.
I calculated the previous amount. It's approximately 37,000.
Right.
Any other questions regarding the sewer district?
So there'd be no change in tax bills for people changing.
I can't say that with certainty, but there may be a small difference for properties if they're going between sewer 1 and sewer 6 because the districts carry slightly different tax burdens. So the tax bill, depending on which district you're in, you pay on your property tax according to the capital debt on that system. I don't believe it would be significant, but I can't say that with authority without having the full list and actually looking at it. And we're still going through all the properties and just trying to cross-reference and make sure everybody's assigned to the right spot.
Thank you.
Well, we want to look at that very closely, right? And see what the impacts are for sure on the residents of those people that aren't listed in the right district. So we'll have to get a list together.
Okay. That looks like all of the items we have for action, and I do not see anything else listed. Is there anything that needs to be added for public safety from the floor? Public Works, transportation, community programs, economic development? Okay, then that's all we have for tonight's finance meeting. At this time, I'll make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, we stand adjourned and we'll move into our agenda committee meeting next.